Hello.
Boom! Hey peeps, how's it going? Good morning. This is Anne, and welcome to Reaper Miniatures Pro Tips with me and disembodied voice Justin. I hope you are all having an excellent Wednesday morning. We are on hump day. We are halfway through the week. Huzzah! This is a good thing. The sooner we get to the weekend, the better. How is everybody? Yeah, we've been going live a little bit earlier, so you guys have time to get into the chat room. So I'm sorry I didn't see everybody pop in and say good morning. I'm just going to say a good morning. Bon matin tout le monde, so to speak. Hey there, everybody. Hey, Alpha and Margaret, Cornico. Laleika. Is it Laleika or Lalaika? I don't know, but it's musical. I like it. Hello. Oh dear. Oh, am I super quiet? Well, I'm facing away from the mic and I'm leaning in right now, so that could be that I am quiet, but otherwise I have not altered any of my settings, Nomad Zeke, so hey Trainer, good to see you. Night SOS. Hello, I've not seen you on before. Wednesday evening for you. Yeah, it's morning for me, but afternoon or evening for the rest of the stream, pretty much. Unless we've got anybody from Hawaii, then they're earlier than I am. Doesn't sound quiet to you? Good, then it's probably just weird. Hey, Socrates. Yeah, scheduling, work, bad stuff, keeping you from watching the stream. I know, it sucks, right? Volume good in Canada. Well, that's good. Canada can hear me. That's important, right? Hey, Acid Burn Punk. Noon is your morning. I have friends like that. Actually, it's more like 4 p.m. is their morning. So, hello, everybody. So, I'm taking a request from yesterday. I don't remember if it was Mathophile or if it was somebody else, but somebody asked about Etherealness. So, we're switching models today. Yay! We'll probably go back to Juliana because I do want to finish her. But for now, we are working on a Wraith. And I thought it was a Julie Guthrie Wraith, but I was wrong. It was a Bob Rodolphi Wraith. So, let us zoomies and get our thingy up. It is a very nice little female Wraith. Actually, her pose and the rocks at her base really make me want to put her on kind of like a seashore or some rocks with waves coming up, crashing against them in the moonlight or something. I guess we could do a moonlight, but this is a bad model to do moonlight with because she's going to be glowing. So she is the light source, so to speak. So that means that we cannot really do moonlight. But yeah, we'll do ethereal. I think I might get her going from ghostly to corporeal up at the top. That's what I'm kind of thinking. That was kind of what I was talking about yesterday. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out what kind of base to put her on. Yeah, ghosts are easy. Easy. Yeah, oh, Alpha, was this you? Yeah. You wanted ethereal. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I figured I had the model. I remembered that I had it yesterday, and so I was like, well, why not? Because ghosts are actually, ethereal things are actually, like, one of the easiest things to do. It's super easy. I don't know, red hair. I would go away from that, Chibi. It depends on if I do her like my Ghost Bride, which was something I did. I have a picture of her somewhere. I wonder if I have it on my phone or not. It might be on my other thing. I'll put it up on my Patreon Discord. I've used Ghost Bride as an example in a past Patreon thing. But the Ghost Bride, which is also sculpted by Bob Rodolphi, I did as half dead and half alive. And so with her, I definitely used warm colors. But for a Wraith, I would probably not go with red hair unless I was going with Goth Red, like the black, red, purple kind of thing with the artificial highlights. And the reason is that to convey, like, somebody dead, you usually want to go very cold and you want to make them look that way. If you go with warmth, then you're suggesting something different. So if whether she's a wraith or a ghost, right, or whether she's good or bad, you kind of gotta balance that out. For me, for etherealness, I would tend not to go so warm, unless I'm doing a specific, where she's alive up here and dead down here, like I did with Ghost Bride. Although then it was half and half. So you got to ask yourself, first of all, what kind of undead you're doing, what she is. Is she a monster? Is she a misunderstood ghost? Is she a wraith that sucks the life out of people? You know, and go with that. One of the other problems you may run into with red is just that, yeah, it's a really alive color is the problem. So it's like you kind of have to make it kind of dead in order to make it carry quite well. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but Wraith's the perfect model for artists who hate feet. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, do you have goth red hair, Chibi? But and I always wanted that hair color, but yeah, I always liked my hair color too much to dye it. But yeah, I mean, okay, so you can go red if you want to. Just keep in mind that you're going to be giving a non-ghostly kind of feel if you go really vibrant with it. Right, so the question is, you know, is more like what effect you're looking for. So for here, we're going to go ethereal up, and we really just the first question is what base we want to glue her down to make her easier to hold and to stick down. This the little one here which is the Reaper 30mm or whatever it is a really good fit for her. Her bottom fits on it entirely. If her base did not fit on this entirely, like if it went over the edge of the rim, I would either take a knife or a clippers and kind of saw it down and sculpt some green to disguise it, or I would use this bigger base. I do like these bigger rounds without the slot in them for if I'm trying to do something scenic. So if I wanted to put her, you know, on some rocks out in the harbor with, you know, maybe some extra, like put some starfish or something down here, or mollusks, things like that, barnacles, and do some water around her, I would definitely choose this base. Because it gives me more room to work with. It's very hard to do a scenic basing effect on something like this. You could do a very minimal one, but it's hard to carry the scene. On the other hand, if she's a gaming model, obviously you do want to go with something smaller. You could go pretty dramatic on this in base. Actually, she doesn't fit on it perfect. Oh, there we go. See? I can just take off that little bit of flash, though. She should be fine. You could go very minimalist with this base if you built up more rocks for her to be on, raised her up a little bit above the water, and then you could have a little bit more room down here to do an effect. But so think about this when you're doing a mini, say for display or competition or for a present for somebody. I'm just going to take this little bit of flash off that I missed, and then she should fit on the base just great. There. Let's see. Wanted to talk about basing real quick on that subject, so you guys got a basing lecture. Woohoo. All right, so that's a bit better. I think I still have a little tiny bit of rock down here that is a little bit over the edge. So I tend to shave it from the underside because if I can essentially get it to kind of go over this little lip but still fit flat on the bottom, that's fine for me. So often our bases will be just a little bit over, and if it's just a tiny bit, you can take off a little bit at a time until she fits. And then I would try to cover the slot entirely with her so that when you are adding whatever basing you want to add to her, you don't have to worry about glue seeping through and gluing her onto your table, because we all know that's a thing. For gluing model onto the base, I usually use the Loctite Ultra Gel because it is a lot thicker. So if there are any irregularities in the base bottom, it's going to fill them and still stick her down. Yeah, Crispy's, I think it was Alpha who asked for ethereal ghost things. He asked yesterday, how do I paint this? And I'm like, that is not an easy question to answer in 2 seconds. So that is why we are doing this today. It's Spectral Glow, actually, but there's a couple of spectrally colors. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to set her on that and let her go. I was actually going to talk about different colors to use for ethereal, because you can use a whole bunch of them, right? Like, usually, it's like I was just mentioning with the red hair argument, or discussion, I should say. Usually it's cold colors, right? Because the dead are cold, commonly thought to be cold, since they lack life. So cooler colors tend to be the way people tend to go. So I've gone with like a pale blue gray before. I've gone with a pale blue green. Let me see where my spectrum... I've got Phantom Glow. Yeah, so there we go. Let me see. You could go with a indigo. Like, you could probably go with, like, Icy Violet. You want to ask yourself what other colors you're going to have on the piece, if you're going to have anything. I mean, a lot of people with ghosts, it's best to just go with the glowiness and the white, and then maybe some black. It's an activate you want. You can red hair all of your ghosts if you want to, Chibi. It just means that Chibi's ghosts are red-haired. That's just the way it is. You could have your red-haired ghostly army, and I would be like, whatevs. You do you. You do you. Red hair, the problem with, this is kind of a cultural thing, right? So, because there's a lot of questions here that I can get to. You asked about the red to emote anger and rage. If you went with a kind of an unnatural red, I would say a colder red, you could do that. The problem with it is, in our culture, redheads are often associated with life and vibrancy and fiery personalities. And so that's a little counterintuitive on some ghost things. That's why I'm like, you can make it work, but, you know, it's all expectations. It's all what you want to do. Just keep in mind that she may look more alive than ghostly if you go that way. And if you do like dead white skin or something like that, it may not go with the red hair as well. And the other thing to ask yourself is what color are you going to use to represent the phantom part of her? Because you got to make sure that the red hair goes with that. So could you use red hair? Sure, you could. I mean, you could do whatever you want, right? But keep in mind cultural references and associations. So that's just pretty much what I was kind of getting at with the whole why I would not do it. And I think the color might tend to clash as well, but it maybe not if you used a blue-green. So, yeah.
By the way, Miss.
Yeah.
I wanted to give kudos to Boffin there, because they made they distinguish between a fight and an argument, when that's often all too common in society, that argument is synonymous with fight when really it's synonymous with discussion. So.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can take it either way, right? I mean, it's really right, some people say they're fighting when they have an argument, and some people say they're having a discussion instead of an argument. So it's shades of gray.
Right. It's just often argument is people associate with immediate like negativity and distaste, when really you and I can just discuss stuff, and it's the same as an argument.
Yeah, stating an argument in favor of something, for example. But anyway, Mathophile, I'm going to do something down here, but I don't know what it is yet. So I'm not going to do any green stuff until I have a better concept for it. The cheapo, easy way to do this would be to just put down gravel and some static grass and just paint this like it's part of a tombstone or something in a graveyard. That would be the super easy way. You wouldn't have to green stuff anything then. You just lay down some nice gravel mixture and with super glue or PVA, whatever you're using. And do it down back here as well, and maybe put some dead grass tufts. And that would be the super simple bargain base for gaming characters if you don't want to sculpt stuff. If I was going to do like splashing waves or something, then I would have to do some sculpting here. I have put her on the smaller gaming base, which means I'm going to be very limited in what I can convey, though. So that's really a question as to whether I'd even want to. I may go bargain basement with this one. Who knows? Oh, God, have you been sniffing glue, Socrates? That's... yeah, let's see here. But yeah, Boffrin's got a good point. Oh, well, I mean, you could do the Little Mermaid ghost, I guess. If you really wanted to, you could actually paint her robes like she has scales on them. Do freehand. Go for it. Go for it. Give me the Little Mermaid ghost. I want it now. You can't say it. You can't say it and not do it, Chibi Amy. You've mentioned it, so it's got to be on the internet somewhere, and that means it's your job. If you don't do it, no one will. Quote Gandalf. Yeah, red hair might go with banshees. It depends. It depends. If I was going to do Fae, I wouldn't do this kind of style of miniature, I think. She's a little too traditional ghosty for me. I mean, you could do it that way. It would be interesting if you did some Celtic stones. You could carry it that way. But remember, guys, it's not just... if you're going to do that, if you're going to take a model that everybody's going to look at and think, oh, it's a ghost, it's got the hood and everything, and you want to go something very different with it, make sure you have your basing, back it up, And also maybe do some freehand to suggest what you're doing. Like if you're doing a banshee and so you're trying to say she's Celtic, maybe paint some like little Celtic trefoils or designs on the rocks, or do something different like that. And definitely make sure your entire color palette reflects that. It's a little difficult because she has no hands or feet. That's why she looks more like a ghost. And we're going to do it where she's fading out into ethereal energy here. I also might use something other than Phantom Glow or a blue if you're going to do something warmer with her, because you could do something that more purples and magentas often will, or even like a pale yellow like Golden Glow or a clear yellow can suggest a more lively mystical energy and a less cold one. So remember, colors and basing and setting the scene are really important if you want to do something creative with a model like this. Let's see here. Let me get Let's see here. And I might also, if you were going for a face spirit that was fall or spring, I might add some leaves to carry that effect. Let's see here. Ghost ship, la la la, yeah. Well, if we were to do ghost ship, I'd rather do a more traditional pirate ship, like with big sails and stuff. I don't know, maybe a galleon, a little wider. Our current ship is really long, isn't it? Or am I thinking of the barge? I don't know. But yeah, you could paint the ship ghosty. Let's see here. Yeah, you could do her as an air spirit. That would work. I would go with probably blues and whites then. Lots of white. I mean, you could do anything with it, right? Viking Cross Graves. Yep. Yeah, I mean, ghosts, any of that. Yeah. All right. What, the transparent stuff? If you're gonna, I wouldn't prime it. Not if you want it to look correct. If you do anything to it, including dull coat, you're gonna frost it and lose the translucency. So you wouldn't prime it. You'd have to wash it. I mean, it's bones, so you don't have to prime it. You just wash it. I mean, the problem is it's so big that if you move it around, you have to be careful not to rub the paint off a little bit on the edges, but that's almost inevitable. You'd almost want to put it on a base and always pick it up by its base. Yeah, I'm not sure, Mathophile. Anyway, let's get some stuff on. We got to figure out what color we're doing here.
Oh, real quick, Ann. There's a nice little bonus because I'm testing it right now.
Bonus, yeah.
Bonus, yes. Actually, if everyone here, if you're not on mobile, if you're on like a desktop PC and you can, if you could for me, go to reaperconlive.com, because I know you guys have been there a couple of times anyway. But we have a nice little surprise on the front page.
Ooh, a surprise on the front page? Well, now I have to go. David, can you go look it up for me? Or are you working?
What? Who?
You have to go and look up reapercon.com. Apparently there's a surprise.
reaperconlive.com.
Oh, reaperconlive.com. Sorry. reaperconlive.com.
Now, this is the early stages. I believe we're going to change it a bit, but you'll notice immediately what I'm talking about. You should notice
sorry.
what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry I interrupted David's work and sent him over to reaperconlive.com. Is there a surprise or what is it?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Failed to load module.
Oh no, it says failed to load module.
That's the surprise. Perfect.
Well, everybody else is oohing and eyeing, so it's just your computer. Go back to work.
It looks like it might be Pac-Man related.
It might be Pac-Man related?
No.
No, it's not.
Okay,
yeah.
It's make sure it's reaperconlive.com.
reaperconlive.com. He wants you to make sure that you're doing
I'm at the right place.
He's just having issues.
Oh, now I can...
Oh, there you are! You can hear yourself.
Yeah, I think it was incognito versus...
Oh.
Like when I opened it in a non-incognito window, it actually added your stream to the top of ReaperCon Live.
Yeah, there we go. So now ReaperCon Live will have our live... Yeah, that's the surprise. It works. The surprise is that it works, right, Justin?
Yes, that's the surprise.
I think it's interesting that incognito breaks it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, Chrome is... I mean, I know David works for Google, correct?
Yeah.
So if you could pass this along, I feel like in the last 6 months, I've had a 200% increase in issues with Chrome through both incognito and other ways.
Oh, interesting. So
I think
incognito
I'm
and other
actually
use.
experiencing memory leaks because of it too. So,
Interesting.
David, I feel like David's my inside man.
I don't think he could go market or march up to the CEO or anything. All right, all right. So wait, random question. I love random question, Moon Glooms. With the Radisson paints on metal after being primed with using full strength paints. How many coats? Okay, so wait a minute. With that, what you mean with the RMS paints on metal? After being primed with using full strength paints, should they go on a single coat or how many coats? Oh, shake well, Moon Glooms. Like, it should not take more than 2. If you're doing full strength, especially now with colors like Carnage Red and Dark Elf Highlight. Dark Elf Highlight has a ton of white in it, and Carnage Red uses a heavy base. The reds are always a little more transparent, so you might need 2 coats, but it should never, ever, ever take more than 2. Not at full strength. Like, full strength, a lighter color should cover in 1 with maybe a touch-up. So yeah. So I would shake really, really well. Make sure you don't have any binder interfering with that. Especially if the paint has been sitting around for a while, you may have to shake a lot more than you usually do, as opposed to, using a fresh paint or a paint that you use all the time. Chat, this is not final. Yes. It's for mature audiences only? Boy, are we in trouble. You are so right, Muse's Touch. John is desperate that you do not judge them, chat. Do not judge him. Correct. Do not judge Reaper.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, is that this is a work in progress. I just wanted to show people so that in theory we should have this embedded Twitch stream when ReaperCon goes live.
Max Styles. Justin, I work IT support and I feel your pain. Nobody is ever impressed. It's so true. All right, let's see here. If you're not shaking enough, if you're not getting coverage out of something like Dark Elf Highlight, which should have decent coverage, I mean, reds and yellows all bets are off. You're gonna need several coats. That's why you always go for a white primer so that you can, maximize your benefit there. Yeah, I haven't ever met a browser that was totally friendly. So.
Oh no, I don't think they exist.
Yeah.
And Chrome was my go-to, and it still really is my go-to. But like, I've had more issues with it in the last 6 months. I was just curious if something had happened to it recently.
I doubt it, but he wouldn't know anyway, because not his department. So.
What is David's department?
I'm not permitted to talk about his work. So. If you can ask him in private, but I'm not gonna tell you all what David does for Google over the internet.
I see.
You can assume it's Secret Service. Yeah.
There we go. He's got secret clearance.
If he told you, he'd have to kill you. He's probably laughing at me right now. But anyway, yes. So, if you wanted to have more of a sorceress kind of feel, guys, or a general magical spirit kind of feel, you could go totally away from ghosty feeling and go for something like Runic Glow. Which is more of a Magenta-Y color. So this would give you still a glow effect, but it would just give you a very different sort of glow effect. It's meant more for sorceress energy. So, no, Lebrowski. You guys can...
I actually laughed out loud at that. Actually laughed out loud when
yes. I read. But anyway, so yeah, let's get on this thing. So this is so easy. Ghosts are so easy, you guys. Don't complicate ghosts. Ghosts are 2 colors. Okay, we're gonna do more than 2 colors on this ghost, but seriously, if you are doing ghosts, simply pick out your spectral color. Make sure that it is not too light. This is actually on camera. It's showing up a bit lighter than it is in person. But do shake it well, as just discussed. This is a metal model, so I'm gonna thin it just slightly, going on over the base coat. I usually thin my bones base coats too, to be fair. And I want pure white for my other color. Always pure white. I never go with an off-white. I guess if you were going with Runic, you could go with Spectral Glow, or Spectral White, the purple white, if you wanted. But it should be very near white, because you're trying to suggest energy. And energy tends to be glowy, and glowy things tend to be light. Because otherwise they wouldn't be glowy. Let's see here. Yeah, I primed it. I mean, it's metal. I mean, I always prime my metal models, so... No, you'd never paint right over metal. You always prime metal. Always. So what I used here is a light gray primer. But it is a metal model, yes. I mean, if you look at its item number, it is a Dark Heaven Legends female Wraith. May require assembly. So yeah, let's stir that up. And stir up our white. And actually, I'm adding a little bit of the teal to the white. I can always get more white later. And I'm going to do pretty much the whole thing, I think, in the teal to start with. We'll see. Maybe I'll fade it in. Yep. It's a metal SKU. Yeah, Dark Heaven Legends is our metal line. So, let's see here. So easy. So easy. Like, seriously, I pretty much base coat the entire ghost in the spectral color. Even though I'm going to paint over this in the future. But it'll help me to blend into it if I do the whole thing. And yeah, we're using Phantom Glow because she's a Phantom, and I'm going to use a glow. And also, I don't use the glow colors enough, and I really like them. If you were going for a fall spirit, I just realized, like, if you decided to turn her into, like, a spirit of fall or something, you could go with red neon glow as your glow. That could be interesting. But yeah, this is why I say ghosts are so fast. This is why, like, people who want fast army painting pick up that Games Workshop, like, ghostly army. Because so easy. Glowy color plus white plus black. Done. But yeah. We'll do a little bit more cunning and interesting stuff than that, though. I would never use an actual shadow color on Ghost Sinara. Because I want her to look ethereal. And when you add shadows, you necessarily give a sense of volume. So if I add any shadow other than my base, my spectral color, if I go for a darker shadow with black in it, or any of that, I'm going to lose the sense of her being made of spiritual energy. Because if she's glowing, she isn't going to have that stuff. She's not going to cast a shadow. Now, if I decide to make part of her corporeal, which is what I'm planning to do, then that's different. But for the parts of her that are fading out, you do not want to shade them with anything darker than your glow color. Now, if you're starting, I suppose you could start with a very dark glow color, but then it wouldn't look like it was glowing. Like, it really, this is like, you wanted ethereal. So for me, ethereal means kind of pale, misty, and glowing. And so that is why I am doing it this way. You may attempt to do it any way you like otherwise, with any sort of spirit. But if you want it to glow, don't add shadows. Games Workshop has some really nice models. They're styrene plastic. They have certain limitations and certain things they can do a little bit different. Like, they do very heavily multi-part kits, Mathophile, so construction always required, and do use plastic glue, not regular super glue. They have some very nice bigger models, I think, but their stuff is all very obviously 3D sculpted. So if you don't like that sort of style, then it may not turn you on. That said, they do have some very, very nice models. I own several of their kits. I used to play a lot. I still have some Eldar for 40k, but I have no one to play with right now. So we picked up some of the Beastgrave stuff, and that was pretty. I have it right here, but I don't have the box. So actually, those are really good if you want to, like, see Games Workshop models and kind of see if you like the style. Is their little it's Beastgrave, and there's some others. Their little melee skirmish. Their little skirmish fantasy game type thing. It's a card game / miniatures game hybrid. But they come in little starter boxes, so you can get like 5 or 6 really nice models to play with without making a huge investment. And they're all neat. I mean, they're all... I picked up like the kind of wood elf kind of stuff, and they're fun to paint. And David has been painting up some chaos stuff, and it seems to be cool. Oh, too expensive for that, Mathophile. Games Workshop, if you're not familiar with it, is the most expensive miniatures on the planet. Most expensive miniatures habit. They are extremely overpriced, and they've taken a lot of chaff about that over the years. Because you're paying for gaming effectiveness, and they have a very large client base. Games Workshop is the largest miniatures company on the planet. It's a multi-million dollar, like multi-tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't remember. Tens of millions for GW? I don't remember. But let's say they're a factor of enormity larger than Reaper. And they're worldwide, and they have, you know, a large store presence and a very large following. And they charge a lot of money for their stuff.
Especially the good stuff.
Yeah, especially the good stuff. If it's good in the game, you can expect to pay a crap ton for it.
Correct.
Well, that's what we're... Yeah, Socrates, exactly. False demand, right? Yeah. That's why I pretty much now... why I don't play...
Games Workshop revenue is $250 million.
Yep, there we go. $250 million. Or British pounds, even more. So about $325 million. So yeah, give that, that's a factor of enormity is what that is. That's a miniatures company that's worth over 300 million. Think about that. So yeah, they're big. They've over many years they've grown a very large audience. All right, so now I have to ask myself where the glow is most strongly coming from and where, like, she's most spectral. Usually what I'll do is leave the spectral glow, the original color, in what I would consider to be shadows. But I also can put stronger highlights near the bottom of the figure because I really want her to be glowing as she comes up off the rock. And I want to kind of do a little bit of glow effect onto the rock as well, that she's casting a kind of glow onto it. So wherever I want there to be a glow, I need to make it lighter overall. So I will probably lighten up. I'm going to mix some of my spectral glow with my white. Or sorry, phantom glow with my white. And I'll block in the lower part of her in a much lighter color. This is about 1-to-1. And I'll go up from there. And because you're only using 2 colors, it makes it very easy to blend. So when you do need to blend this into your base coat up here, you can just pick up some more spectral glow and kind of wet blend it in. Smoosh it together a bit, to use the technical term. And get a more, you want that lighter effect down at the bottom. I think I almost need to put her over the palette because, yeah, you're going to be able to see it better. Yep, yeah, because she's so light. I'm painting her so light, so over the palette is the way it's going to be. Or I guess I could grab some white paper. Oh yeah, I mean a small group would be nice because all the models look like they go together. So if you picked up like a unit of ghosts, that would be a good ghost army. That might give you like 10 or 15 models, enough for you to recycle on the gaming board. I'm going to actually try a white sheet of paper under this, guys, and see if it makes it easier for you to see her. Let me grab my printer paper. I normally use this gray because it gives me better color representation, but I'm more interested in you guys being able to see the dark and light. All right, yeah, so there, you can see how I've made it noticeably lighter on the bottom here. So make it harder to see true color representation, but this is actually how dark the spectral glow is, or the phantom glow is out of the bottle. So it is actually not very light. Let's see here. Grim, that's funny. It would be cheaper if we got them into crack. Yes, but you know what? That's their selling point. They're like, this gives your kids something creative to do with other people that isn't, you know, drugs and getting into trouble. Like that is a actual selling point that Games Workshop teaches its personnel to express, even if not in so many words. Yeah, I just buy the ones that I really like now. Like every once in a while they'll have I have a Wood Elf Tree Man. I have Sylvaneth stuff for fantasy because I used to play Wood Elves all the time, and some of the big models for there are really nice. Yeah. Yes, plastic crack, exactly. Yeah, well, we've always had that reputation, though, Gurgi. That was a goal of Ed when he started up the company. If I'm correct. Oh yeah, the Forge World site. I've been pretty good about resisting it. I do have one Forge World model actually up right above me. I could reach up and get it. It's actually out of print. They stopped making it because it's not a gaming model, and they decided that their gaming-oriented models were more what their business goal was. So I actually own the old Hormigaunt bust that they made in Forge World. I keep debating over what color I want to make it. That's what's stopping me at this point. I have to have a clear color concept before I waltz into a big model. Now, I suppose I could use color shift paints on it. I've always been talking about that I had an idea for how to use color shift paints. That could be really cool. And certainly a gigantic bug would be the perfect model to use color shift paints on. Oh yeah, the smog is a nice huge dragon. Alright, so now that we've got this lighter, I can take it up even lighter. And now I'm more going to be highlighting kind of like a traditional highlighting, but I'm not doing light sourcing. Like, she's the glowing thing, and this is the glowing part. So I'm doing more like wherever the fabric is thicker, bunched up, or raised, I'm going to do more intense. Because that's where her ectoplasm, or whatever you're talking about, is going to be thicker, hypothetically. So that's what I'm going to choose to highlight. Oh, and speaking of ectoplasm, you could also use a yellowish green if you wanted to go like Slimer from Ghostbusters. That's totally a legal ghost color. So really, you could go almost any color for spirits, depending on what spirit energy you're trying to represent. Just give it a thought and think about the parallels. Because if you're going to try to make it a Fey spirit and you go yellow-green and everybody shouts, Slimer, it's a ghost, then you're going to know, wait, no, it's not a ghost. Maybe that wasn't the best choice. But you can always just explain yourself, of course. So I'm leaving a bit of my mixture of Spectral Glow and white into the cracks there. You can see it. I'm bringing up lighter on areas. I'm also probably going to grab and bring it lighter toward all the edges, like, because that's where I want the glow to be coming from. So there's two places I'm making glow. One where the ectoplasm is going to be thickest, and two, if I'm trying to make like an edge glow brightly before it like fades off into just energy, like thin air, then I will make that lighter as well. And if I just set those two rules in mind at the start, then I'll be able to shade and highlight this appropriately, keeping those rules in mind, and it'll be consistent. And my white mixture is definitely too thick. I'm not like necessarily blending here. Oh yeah, I mean, Inara, no doubt you could get a lot more out of Reaper for the money than you can get out of Games Workshop. The only question is just, do you like the GW sculpts? If you like the GW sculpts and the GW style, then, go ahead. And it's no worse than me paying, $80 bucks for a really nice resin bust from Europe, which I've done. So, I worked for Games Workshop once upon a time. You guys may not know that. I know I've mentioned it before briefly here and there throughout my painting career, but you may not be aware that I actually did work for them. I worked for them out in their Glen Burnie, when their headquarters was in Glen Burnie, Maryland, when I was out there. And then I worked for them back when I moved back to Chicagoland before I came down here to work for Reaper. So I have worked for GW, and I have a pretty pragmatic stance on them, I guess, because I have been a Games Workshop employee. I've seen them at their worst, and I've seen them at their best. And the guy who is currently running the show is such an improvement that I don't send them hate mail anymore. I never sent them hate mail. But, I haven't been down on GW for a while because they are trying. They're trying to do two things. They're trying to please their shareholders, and they're trying to make their product maybe a little bit more affordable as they go. So, Yeah, the Forge World Bloodthirster, that's a fantastic. All of the greater demons from Forge World are fantastic dog father. Oh, I shouldn't be intimidated. Like, whip out an airbrush, put a base coat on it. That helps sometimes. Just get into it. And go slow. Like, anytime you're intimidated by a model, make yourself start it and just go slow. And tell yourself, I'm going to go slow, so if I do make a mistake, I'm going to see it in plenty of time, and I'm going to have time to fix it. And if you are on my Patreon, you can always post up stuff on my Discord if you're a patron. If you are stuck on a model or you did something and it doesn't look right and you're not sure what you did, you can always post it up for feedback. I will get on and I will try to help you fix it. Like, that is one of the pluses to being my patron, is that you can post up stuff like that on my Discord and I will give you feedback. It's not as, like, intensive feedback as you would get in a mentoring situation or coaching, but it's still, you know, you have that resource, use it. Alrighty, so we're going to try to, again, make everything lighter where it's going off. Yeah, it probably would go well with Grindylow Blue. Grindylow would be a darker version of this, and technically that is the way you could add further shadows. If you have a really saturated color, don't go with anything black though. Don't go with anything that's going to suggest actual mass. You want the bright, intense colors because they're going to look unreal. They're not going to look like natural shadows. The minute you go natural shadows, she's going to stop looking like a ghost. Alright. Yeah, exactly. Right, and it's good for that, right, Mathophile? When you go slow on a model, it gives you time to develop ideas about how to paint it. So your concept may change quite a bit from the time you start to the time you end, but it gives you that time with the model, right? A lot of us just jump into the model, maybe with just an idea about color, an idea about style or pattern, and or a character, right? And we don't really have like a full concept, but going slow can give you time to form that concept. I do that on models where I'm like not sure, but I kind of have a starting point. Another good time for that whole thing is during the cleaning process. If you have a model that's like resin and it's going to take a lot of cleaning, while you're cleaning it, spend some time really communing with it and thinking about how you could paint it and where your colors would go and what the character of the model is. I always start with the character of the model. Who are they and where are they? What are they doing? And that usually gives me some ideas about colors or patterns. If you love Grindylow Blue or other Pathfinder products, or other Pathfinder paint colors, the best thing I can say to you guys is buy them. Because it's got to sell to stay in print, right? If it sells well, then chances are that Paizo and Reaper will both think that the line is definitely worth keeping. But if you love the color, but you don't tell your friends about it, or you don't ever, buy a second bottle while you can get it, then you kind of are, you get in that HD situation where suddenly it goes away. Or the heavy gear situation. I always tell people, vote with your bucks, And if you really love a color, like could not do without it, always have an extra bottle on hand. Always. Yeah, that and going to art galleries, although now art galleries are of course, thanks to COVID, not currently, doable, but yes, Stephanie, all sorts. 2D art is, that's why we like to raid 2D artists as much as we like to raid miniature painters here. It's because we enjoy doing that sort of thing.
All things art related, right?
Yeah. All art things. Even the body painting. That's why I always say you guys got to look at where Sky Daddy puts her highlights and shadows on, like her neck and skin tones and face. That all can inform the way you paint a miniature. It's absolutely good information. And if it makes you look at it at a different scale, it might actually make you internalize the process, whereas staring at a miniature might not. So, yeah, they have some good purples for sure, Stephanie. Alrighty, let's see here. Got some pure white now. thinning it down, because I had kind of mixed a little bit of the Phantom Glow into my previous pure white, but now I really want to bring up this edge and make it look glowy. And I'm going to paint those rocks. We're going to do dark gray. I think I've got Stormy Gray. You bought 4 bottles of Griffin Tan and it still got discontinued. That's because you were the only person on Earth that was buying Griffin Tan, Garnico. I liked that color too, and I was so sad. But yes, here, hold on. I need to grab my Stormy Gray so I can do the rocks and show the glow effect. Yay! All right, rocks. I really liked Griffin Tan too. I always like those golden tans though. People do not realize how utilitarian those colors are. Like, what you can do with a good saturated tan. It is so useful in so many ways. That's why one of my favorite colors is 9073 Chestnut Gold. Which is not Griffin Tan, but it is in the same color classification as Ethne, so... Or Karinico, rather. No. Danshan, there are no color equivalents between the lines. Because I was always very against the idea of asking you to buy the same color under 2 different names. So there are no equivalents from one line to another, unless you're talking about the HDs that got ported over into the Bones line after the fact. They appear in the Bones line after the Dungeon Dwellers. Colors like Dragon Blue that were in other paint sets got brought back. So that's, you know, there wouldn't be... But Amber Gold actually is a very unique tan. So it would not be duplicated. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're going to bring back more HDs, though. I thought the plan was not to. Ed thinks we have a bit too much paint IP right now. I think he doesn't want to add more colors right now. I mean, we're already going to get brand new colors with Bones 5 that I, came up with, so... I mean, I guess we'll get one-shots. I mean, you can expect, like, convention colors and things like that. But I would be very surprised if they ported in more HDs and Pro Paints. What might happen is if Sadie likes some of the Pro Paints and decides to base a color on the Pro Paint, like essentially start out with this Pro Paint, but then make it a little more green or a little more dark or a little more light, something like that. That's something that I've done before. If there's a color I like, but that I think I could improve on. But I'd be very surprised if more HDs came back. I mean, I could be wrong. Reaper has surprised me plenty of times in the past, guys, so don't take it to be gospel. Remember, I don't work on site anymore, so there could be all sorts of sneaky things going on that I have no idea about. I'm just going to be an innocent little Anne here and paint my little ghosty. That's it. It's like Bobby Jackson says, I'm going to sit around and sculpt my little pewter people until they come for me. And yet, you really only need a few browns. I guess I've got a fair number. But I mean, I don't think I would use... There are definitely like 10 browns that I use frequently. That I use over and over again, and I don't feel the need to go outside of those browns. Now, I have like super mixing powers, right? Because I understand the line so well, but... I would say that you could get away with... It depends, though, on whether you're willing to mix. If you really want... Nope, I think that's stone under there. Painted it wrong. If you really want to be able to just reach for the exact brown you need, then absolutely you should get more browns. Depends on how mixing focused you are. So pretty much just blocking in the stone. This also helps me now because I can see what's stone and what's not, so I can make sure that I'm not painting stone as spectral energy. And I missed part of the dress back here, so I'm going to have to fix that. And this is one of the weird situations where I am not going to line between the model and the stone because I want it to glow. I want the glow to be cast on the rocks. And that's part of why I'm going with a darker gray for the stones. Because if I'm not going to line, but I still want contrast, then my base gray needs to be darker. And you would not line for the same reasons that you would not shade with a black color, is you do not want to cast a shadow or give the impression of mass. We'll block this in, and then we'll do some glowies. And I'll keep working on the ghosty. And then maybe tomorrow we'll start working up and fade her into more of a living entity up here, more solid. And then we can do some highlights and shadows, and we can blend into that spectral color. Later, Grim. Oh, I make mistakes all the time. Lordy. The difference between me making a mistake and a lot of other people I know making a mistake is that I just kind of shrug it off and fix it. Like, that's the difference between a pro, I think, and a more of a beginner, is that when a beginner makes a mistake, they get very discouraged in general. And that's, you know, that's a shame because, I mean, mistakes are how you learn. Mistakes and successes are how you learn. But I think that's like the mark of somebody who has a good attitude about the hobby, is if you can just kind of shrug and fix it. Understand that acrylic is so easy to fix. Gosh, if this was watercolor or colored pencil, we'd be screwed, guys. We'd be screwed. But look, we can just paint over stuff. We have it so easy. So easy. Hey, Coos. All right, so we got some stuff here. Now, unfortunately, there is some underlying stuff up here, so we have to kind of ask ourselves what it is. It looks like it just might be kind of like ethereal energy over the rock, like the underside of her skirt there. So I think I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that green, I think, right there. But here, I'm going to kind of go up and suggest the shape of the cloth there. There's a nice detail there, so you can, it's up to you. If I want to really accent this edge here, then I can paint everything gray, but then I'm going to run into problems because the edge here is kind of upturned. You can kind of see a texture under it. That's kind of like the texture up here and up here. So I'm more inclined to say that that is spectral energy, and I'm going to keep it lighter. Yeah, awful or impossible to fix watercolor. Alrighty. Now, one thing that's worth mentioning is if you painted something gray and you decide, oh noes, I need to go back and actually paint this teal, like so that it looks like the ghost, put down white first. If you try to put this the phantom glow over the dark gray, it's going to look darker. So definitely put down a layer of white first, like I did there, and then paint over it with your glow. And that's just like white paper versus black paper. Some colors are going to look lighter over white paper and darker over black. It's a function of transparency. And yes, you can load enough paint on over the dark gray to make it look lighter, but that's wasting your time, really, if you think about it. I mean, you'd much rather just have it done quick if you're going to do a touch-up like that. So I'm going to also fix this part that I missed back here. There we go. We are all happy. Thank you, Planer, for the Patreon plug. I mentioned it earlier, and I forgot to give you guys the info, which is patreon.com/paintingbig, and Planer just linked it in chat. And actually, I should have my latest PDF for $5 tier up today. I almost finished it yesterday. I was painting a couple of examples. It always takes a little longer when I choose to do that instead of swatches, but sometimes I like to paint an example of a triad that I'm talking about to illustrate it a little bit better. I'm just going to lighten up this edge, and now we're going to start doing glowy things. There's really sharp demarcation line there. So I think often I will do glow effects with underpainting with white, but here I think I want to actually be a bit more subtle when I build it up. So I'm going to reach for my phantom glow. I'm going to thin it down a little bit. I'm going to paint it over this gray rock and see how I can bring it up. And then essentially I'm going to highlight the Phantom Glow closer to where the ghost is. Oh, poor kitty. Yeah, that's why we had pet insurance for years. Now it's so expensive because Kiri's so old that we just decided that we'll pay for whatever comes up. But I do heartily endorse pet insurance for health problems with animals. You never want to be in that situation where you can't afford care. I have been in that situation. All right, so gonna paint over with Spectral Glow right up against the bottom of this. Kind of want to layer it so that the glow will appear to fade as it goes farther away from the ghosty. So I'm going to turn it this way so that I can keep a good brushstroke, comfortable brushstroke for me. When you're layering up color, you want to start and pull back toward where you want the color to be more intense, because when you lift up your brush, you're leaving a stronger puddle of color. So this is traditional layering, and I'm just going to pull toward the tops of the rocks here. We'll worry about the texture on the rocks later, but right now we just want to give the effect of glowing energy coming off. We can suggest more rock texture after we've got this base of glowiness down. And you can always touch up something if you missed it. I want maybe a tiny bit of glow energy down on where the rock, at the top of that rock. Now remember, the further, and we talked about this with the turtle, right? And the lantern. The farther you get from the light source, the dimmer the light source is going to be. So here's where you really want to ask yourself, like, you know, how bright is this energy? Is it really, really bright? You don't want it so bright that it's going to totally wash out all of your rocks. But you do want... Good job, Francis. Yeah, that's why Kiri's been insured since she was a baby puppy. So nothing is pre-existing at that point. Well, hopefully. So we don't want too much. I don't think I want too much color because I want to still keep the rocks here, but I want to definitely give the idea of a glow. So wherever you have an upper edge is where that glow is going to sit. And then up here toward the figure, it's going to be more dramatic. You guys can see that. So we're starting out there. Yeah, but most genetic disorders are covered, Mathophile. Usually, if you have good insurance. I mean, technically, cancer has a genetic component, but my pet insurance still covered Kiri's cancer treatment. Oh yeah, they're always worth it. No question there. Yeah, that's kind of what made us insure, actually. We went with Embrace, which is one of the better... Embrace and Nationwide are really good plans. And if you only have one animal, it's not that expensive, especially when they're younger. But, it would have saved us. I mean, if we had been lower income, we could never have paid for Kiri's radiation treatments. And, I mean, it got me another over 4 years with her because she was diagnosed when she was 8. So... was worth it in my opinion. I would always after that experience, and you just never know what's going to happen, but after that experience I would always insure my pets from a young age. Just because I know how expensive it can be to have an emergency treatment and you can't see it, just like with people, right? You can't see it coming. I had to put my cat down when I was younger, right before I moved to Reaper, actually. Before I moved to Texas, I had to lose my first ever kitty, who I loved. She was an Abyssinian. Her name was Ishtar. And I had to let her go because I didn't have insurance and I couldn't afford the treatments for her feline diabetes. And ever since that time, I am a firm believer in pet insurance. I never, ever want to be in that situation again where I cannot afford care for my beloved animal. So your mileage may vary. I know a lot of people are not thrilled with the thought of insuring animals, but that's my experience, so... Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. Oh, yeah, 17. Wow. That's a good run, though. Yeah, Healthy Paws. Okay, cool. That's great, Francis, that they covered stuff. I haven't heard of that one. They really vary widely. Plans all vary widely in what they will cover. I do know that. We did a lot of research before we got insurance for Kiri and Leo. So now I'm going in a little bit stronger, a little bit lighter to bring up those rocks. And I have to make sure to hit this texture on the inside too. I am going to leave a little bit of gray showing though, because there's going to be shadows in the pitting of these stones, right, somewhere. So leaving the gray in the shadows on the rock is a good idea. And the light's going to get pretty strong up here, really close to the ghost. And sometimes it can be very difficult when there's a recessed area like this, because, you know, the miniature will cast a shadow if the lighting in the room is, you know, above. So the best you can do is kind of make it look right. If you tilt it back, make it all look like it's glowing. It's like trying to paint a glowing inside of a monster's mouth, right? It fights you because there's no light getting in there. So it gets really difficult. So try to keep a little bit of texture. Let me get closer here. Closer and lighter. There we go. So I'm keeping a little bit of the stone texture here. You can see where I'm keeping little fissures and cracks. And that's essentially just going to suggest that there are cracks and holes in the rock there, where the light from the specter is not getting into that. And it helps to keep some of that texture suggested. It also makes you keep a little bit of your gray of your stone, so it ensures that this all looks like it is all part of itself. You know, it's all part of the same object. Close to the Ghost. That is a good band name. Yeah, that old, I mean, something's going to go wrong with you. You know, it's like living to be 100. You probably have a few issues. You just hope you have relatively minimal ones. Or ones that you can deal with easily. I'm going to bring in a little bit more. I want to kind of get down here and do the same thing that I did up there. Blocking it all in with the Phantom Glow first. And then I'll start bringing in brighter highlights. But you can see already it's looking like you can tell that it's glowy energy. And this is where it's important to keep some of the gray here, because keeping the gray around lets it be more dramatic when you put the teal here, places where the stone is going to pick up a little bit of that light. It makes it more, it enables you to make it look more like light, because it's fading out and then just a little bit is catching on these projecting areas here. So that's kind of what you're looking for as far as getting that glow going on. And that's why I didn't shade or highlight the rock at all yet, actually. I mean, I'm going to go in probably with some walnut or something and darken down this big aperture here. And probably under here and in these cracks, I'm going to make them darker. But for right now, I'm really looking for, am I pulling the effect? I want to make sure I've got the effect that I want on these glowy rocks. And as I bring these highlights up closer to this bright edge here, it's going to look more and more like the light is coming from the ghost. I mean, it already does, but it's going to get even stronger. So the more, essentially, if I left the rocks like this, it would look like just a soft glow. But the more I bring them up toward the white on the edges here, the more these rocks are going to look like the ghost is really bright. So now let's go for our mixture of white and Phantom Glow. And this time we're not going to go, you can see on the teal here that I went almost all the way down the rock, right? There are touches of the Phantom Glow all the way down here. I'm not going to go down that far with this next color. I'm going to concentrate it more toward the top. And I'm going to also do a little bit of stippling with the tip of my brush to suggest the stone texture that I see and make it just a little bit stronger up here. So now the brightest light is picking out texture more and casting darker shadows. You can see even that little add makes everything look brighter up near the ghost. Now, obviously, if you were doing an army or a bunch of gaming models, you could just do this fast, right? You wouldn't spend as much time on it as I am, but the principle is still pretty simple. So you could do this definitely for a group of 8 or 10 models. Just don't, do it fast. Probably do a bunch of models at a time. The nice thing about doing this kind of effect for a group of minis, there's a couple of pits here in the rock I want to suggest. The nice thing about doing this for a group of minis is you're only doing like 3 colors, right? You have your Phantom Glow, you've got your white, you've got your mixes thereof, and then you've got like a gray for your rocks or your ground or whatever you're doing. And so it's coming up closer in Ara, as I was just saying. The closer you bring this up, the higher you bring this up, and the closer to the color it is here, the brighter the dress is going to look like it's shining. So it depends on how much light you want coming off of the ghost. If you want the ghostly light to come off really strongly, then yes, bring these highlights almost all the way up to pure white. I wouldn't bring them up necessarily to pure white, because the pure white on the edges here is what's really going to suggest a glow. And so only the thing that is glowing should go up to the absolute highest point. But you should, if you want it to be a very strong glow, then you bring it almost up to that down here. This is a really easy, relatively easy technique to do, and it gives you really good results, as you can see, really impressive results. And it's probably one of the easiest ways to start thinking about light sourcing, because you know that the edge of the dress is glowing, and so you just have to think about, well, what parts of the rocks here are going to get the strongest glow. It's going to be anything facing upward. It's going to be any upward-facing edge. And the closer it is to the ghost, the lighter and brighter the glow should be. If you feel like you get out of control on your glow and that you need to back off it a bit, you can always glaze with the original color, the original Phantom Glow, and that will knock your highlights down a bit, and you can rework them up as you wish. And you could choose whether to stipple or just to layer like I started out. I like to do the stippling, which is the poke, 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 and just using little like dots to suggest rock texture. I like to use the stippling just because it's a bit more visual interest and lets you suggest more rough texture in the stones, texture that may not even be sculpted there. And if it is sculpted there, it gives you a chance to accent it. Yeah, Griggy, essentially I'm just showing the glow effect down here because it's easy to show, how with the rocks you can suggest it. But yes, the arms here are also going to go out to the pure white, and maybe the end of the hood, because it could be trailing off into ethereal energy. It depends on how much of her I make look more solid. I definitely am going to start introducing like more of a solid feel up here in her torso. And what that will do actually is allow me to balance out some of the colors and really draw attention, because this is very showy down here. It's going to draw the eye, because essentially the stippling amounts to almost freehand, and freehand always draws the eye. So in order to balance the model and make sure that people are looking at her focal point, i.e. her expression and her torso and her movement, I'm going to need to do something different up here. And that's why I think I'm going to make her kind of becoming more solid as she goes up, and then have her trailing off still in other directions. So yeah, well, let's block that in real quick. Why not? So then I need the lighter color, my lighter glow, out on the arms. Going up toward a much, much lighter glow on the outer edges. And I'm just wet blending real quick, just to block in. My paints are all thin, so my wet blend is not like ideal, but it'll at least get it a start. And then I can go back in and refine it with layering, which is a good fast way to paint, by the way, if you're looking for more speed in your painting. If you get the knack of wet blending, starting with a quick wet blend and then going back and just refining and making things more precise with layering is a nice fast way to get paint jobs done. I like this wide sprayed out edge here. You could also decide to keep things lighter near the edges of like the holes in her cloth if you wanted to suggest that those parts were trailing off, and they really are. So when I come back in, I might bring up this edge toward white, just like I did the edge of the bottom of the dress, and this hole over here as well. Let's see here, and we'll do... Now the interesting thing will be if I decide to make her hood more solid and I go black with it, then trailing out will be interesting. Then you're doing a black to white fade with the teal in the middle. I think it's a little more difficult. But for right now, I'm just going to look for that fade and just go with it. And I can always adjust it later. And this is the one time where you don't leave a shadow on the underside of things, because something is glowing, it's going to be glowing. There we go. Quick fade. Let's see. Just checking out. Yeah, losing your mid-tone, for example. Yeah. Well, if you have clear bright Skirgy, all you have to do is mix clear blue and clear green together and then add some white to get close to the glow colors. Any like light, vibrant color will work. So yeah, so at least I've got a little bit of a fade now on those outer areas, so we can see that that's the way it's going to go. I'm going to come back down. I'm going to look at my glowy effect on the base again. I think I need a little bit more. I am going to glaze a bit with my Phantom Glow, I think. So I'm mixing up really thin. There we go. Very, very thin. Like water, as you can see. Very if I pull it across the palette, it's almost totally not seeable. And that's what you want. Got lots of brushes. Good. Yay, brushes. So if I want to spot glaze this base and make it look a little bit more green, because I've lost some of my green in highlighting up, I'll put my glaze over all the areas that I wanted to have kind of a little bit of glow on them. A glaze isn't going to lose the gray part very easily. You do want to remember not let it pool anywhere, so you may have to rinse out your brush or grab a dry brush or a damp brush and kind of slurp it out of any recesses that you see it pooling in. I just use the little tippy hairs off of my brushes to do that. Just wanted to get a little bit more. And I may actually add shadows now because that's going to give us more drama. So let's grab some walnut. You could also use like a colored shadow, like a dark purple or like black indigo, to give this more of an unreal feel. Because remember, if you're going for natural shadows, walnut is your baby. But if you want to go for something more interesting, you could use any really dark colored paint like blue liner or things like that. Since I'm going cold with her, maybe I'll try black indigo and see if I like it. Gotta just block in that dark indigo color and make that hole disappear. I love black indigo. I can't wait till it's out for reals with the Kickstarter. Yeah, you totally could do that. I mean, a glowing, a figure like a vampire or something, you could make the edges of the cape like appear to glow and trail off. That is the problem, right, Sam? You think you have enough paint, and then you don't have enough paint. So I did a little bit of a glaze, and now it's more teal again. And I'm brushing a little bit of teal up again on this. Because I think I need a little more teal. A little more teal. There can always be more teal. And then I might want to take really pale color and kind of highlight some of these little tiny features. Especially if I'm going to put her near water, then the bottom of this stone would be wet. And if it's wet, that means that it's going to catch the light on all its little details. So the more little tiny stone details you can pick up, the more realistic texture your rock will have. And I'm going to get this black indigo thinned down just a little bit. It's probably about 3:1. Then I'm going to actually put some of these fissures and holes and cracks in there. Yeah, the evil thing, and I mean, I created the whole paint line, so if anybody can mix the entire Reaper Master Series paint line from like 15 colors, it's me, right, Sam? But the thing is that you want it handy, right? If you're painting an entire model with a color, you don't want to have to mix it up again and again, and that's where it gets you. That's where it gets you, where you're like, oh, but I really want to paint this whole thing with Kaolian wine, and worse, I want to use it in shadows and highlights, and that means I need to have the bottle. I can't just mix it up every time I want to use it. All right, well, let's grab a little bit of our... We're almost... Oh, wow, it is 10:50 already. For me. 12:50 for Reaper. Justin is hungry. Starting to, like... His stomach is starting growling and starting to come over the earphones. Just joking. To make that edge stand out a little bit more, I put a dark shadow behind it, just with a little bit of my black indigo. So I can make this whole area look a little bit darker, and I put a shadow under this overhang too, because the light's going to cut off there. So that lets me bring that out. So even on things like rocks, you know, doing a little extra shading and highlighting work is a good thing. Any little features of the rock that I decide to bring out with a highlight, like these little holes, I should also put the shadow right above them to show that they are little holes and fissures in the rock. It's probably easier to do the shadow first. I just didn't have the color out to do it. And this little, things like this little crack here that I've got highlighted, I definitely want to put a shadow right above it. Draw in the crack so you can see it more. See it, how that brings that out then? Any little cracks or fissures on the rock, you can bring out this way. And it often helps if you, I made a blorf there. Blorf! It often helps if you thin your paint because you want it to come off in really thin lines and fine dots for this. So, blorf. Aw, darn work. Yes, thank you for the blorf, Anki. Alright, so let's do... Remember not to put this shadow near the ghost, though. We don't want to put any of the shadow up there. We want to keep our dark shadow for the rocks, because that is something corporeal. The rocks are not spirit energy. So all our dark shadows should go to emphasize the rocks. And as we do that, because we're anchoring these rocks in such a, you know, with strong shadows and highlights, unlike the ghost, it'll make the ghost look more ethereal, more like energy, you see? Because by adding natural shadows, by adding dark shadows to these rocks, we're definitely saying these have mass. These are things. They're corporeal things. They have, you know, they're real world things. And that is as opposed to the way we were painting the ghost. So essentially that lets you say, this is ethereal. This ghost here, she has no reality in this world, and she's emitting light, and she's not a physical heavy object. So that's a key point when you're painting something ethereal. Having something like these rocks or a tombstone or basing bits that you can put, you know, strong shadows and highlights on and say, and to make it different, right? Solid black is not a primer. Black primer is black primer. Reaper does make a separate black primer. It's 9214 strange. Solid black, that said, is a very useful black. It's the HD black. And it's a painter's black. So it's actually made by mixing blues and browns in. So it's more of a complex black. A lot of people actually think that it covers better and that they like it better than pure black. So give it a try. Alrighty. Got to be careful when I'm doing these bits of rock down here. I don't want to impinge on the glowing of the skirt. I'm probably going to end up painting over a lot of that. Yes, primers micro etch the surface of the model so that they allow more tooth for the paint to stick to chemically. That's what they do. They dig their little primer claws in and then give you a better tooth for paint to stick to on top. So they do two things. Yeah, I want that shadow to be wiped out probably because it's right under the cloth, so it's going to be glowing pretty extremely. There we go. Alright. Getting there. Now we're coming back up with a little bit lighter shadow, lighter highlights up here. Want to bring these guys back up now. Might want a little bit. I need to get a little lighter toward the top because I wiped that out with my glaze. Now I'm going to be concentrating on much lighter up near the ghost. But again, not taking it up to pure white because only the ghost, only the object that is glowing goes up to pure white. So, and if you're not going up to pure white and you're just going close, keep in mind that only the object gets the lightest highlight. Only the glowing object gets the lightest highlight because it has to be seen to be emitting light. There we go. Now we're looking at it. Now we're looking good. I'm going to bring it a little bit down there, a little bit in here, a little bit in there. A little bit of gray here that I should have had a little stronger. There. Make sure you're shaking it like crazy, Francis. It's a very fine primer and it sticks to glass. If it's mixed up well, but it does take a lot of shaking. So make sure that the particles they stick so well to non-porous surfaces because they're very small, but that makes them settle out very easily. Yeah, you should be essentially on a surface. I'm not sure on PLA, like 3D printed stuff. It might be better to use a spray primer on those. I don't know a lot about those resins and how they react to various stuff, but with the Reaper brush on, you definitely need to shake it like bejeebus a lot. It will settle out. And yeah, I would definitely on something like that with a weird kind of surface texture, I would use it pretty thickly. For anything odd like that, for any resins or 3D printed plastics, I tend to go with a spray primer. Despite not liking solvents very much. Just putting a little bit of the brightest, not white, but brightest otherwise highlight up right next to the ghost. Because you want the light to look like it's coming from her, so you want that strong highlight that isn't quite pure white up next to her dress. So this is pure white with just a little bit of our Phantom Glow mixed in. We want to bring that all over here. And then we want to do that over here too. Don't forget your other surfaces that are right up near the ghost that you want to be very light. And make sure you hit all the ethereal bits and brought them up really high. And if anything looks like a line, like if you've left a little bit of gray between the ghost and the rock, glaze over it a bit with your Phantom Glow to eliminate a line so that you don't get that feeling. I think this is working pretty well. Yeah, well, if Vallejo Primer works on all your 3D prints, then Reaper Primer should work too, Miss Toko, actually. I just don't know enough about the materials to give you a solid answer on that. I know a lot about, like, the primers, but I don't know a lot about those surfaces because I haven't done 3D printing ever. So I'm not familiar with, like, the characteristics of the 3D print plastics. All right, so you got a nice, strong glow coming off. As you can see, it's a lot easier to suggest this where you have a bit of room than where you have very little room. So think about that when you're planning a glow effect. If you have your ghost up on something, give yourself enough room to make sure that you can suggest that glow. And I might... Glows tend to fade out the farther they get from the area. But you can take a little bit of artistic license and use maybe just a tiny touch of lighter color. Like I said, especially if a lower area is like wet, you can get away with a little bit more because it's going to reflect more strongly if it's wet. I think that works pretty well. What do you guys think? Yes? I think I need a little bit more back here. That was too bad, Carly. I've used it pretty extensively over the years, although I've always preferred spray just because it's very, very, convenient. But there were times when I was doing effects on metal miniatures where I wanted to use the metal as its own thing on armor, and so I was using the primer to cover everything else manually. And I didn't really have that experience, but I don't know. I'm pretty a stickler for good quality products. So I wonder if you have a bad bottle. It's weird that it would flake. Alrighty. Interesting. Alright, there we go. Got our light going on. Glowy rocks, yay! That's fun. Alrighty, so it's 11, so we're gonna call it here and look for a raid. But tomorrow we'll work on thinking about and blending in the spectralness into a more physical, solid corporeal form up top, and we'll make it blend in and out, and that'll be fun. So, alrighty. Well, Justin, let's see. How does this look on the gray? Probably washed out. Yeah, you can still see it. You just can't see it as well against the white. So, who have we got to raid, Justin?
We have a couple of options here. We have Dicist, Mocha, and Sky Daddy even. So I'll let you choose one of those three.
Wow. Well, we did Mocha yesterday, and she got hit with a gigantic raid, so that's awesome. What is Sky Daddy doing, and what is Zambies doing?
Let's see. Hold on a second. Sky Daddy is doing, it looks like Anna Henrietta. Wait, is that from The Witcher?
Oh.
She said she has The Witcher. I think it's from The Witcher.
I'm a sucker for The Witcher.
I'm not too familiar with the Witcher series outside of The Witcher.
And what's Zambi's painting?
We have Dicist, not Zambies.
Or Dicist. What is Dicist painting?
Once I'm done watching this ad, I can tell you.
I'm just making my choice based on what could be more applicable for our audience.
Absolutely. It looks like she's painting something chibi-esque. I like it. It looks cool. It's got a face mask and everything.
All right, cool.
Really like this thing.
Well, let's go for Dicist then. That's Chibi's cool. We have Chibi fans in our audience, I know. Not looking at you, Chibi Amy. All right, we're going to do Dicist. Go and pass on the love. This is your commandment. And I will see you guys tomorrow for more ghostly goodness. Haha.
Yeah, spread the Reaper love. Keep being awesome.
Do we have something tonight, or is this the only show for today, Justin?
Nope, this is the only show for today.
All right. Well, then go and has a fun. All right, guys. I will see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you guys very much. And yes, tomorrow morning for Ann is the next show. Thanks, guys.